Alex, Mr. Kelly, we ready?
Yes, sir. Good evening. Thank you. Just as preparation for the April 14th meeting, I have a few items. I prepared a memo for the council for review. There's a number of items related to the action tonight. First is a framework for the DEP's consent order and agreement presented at the February 19th meeting. Basically, if you recall, the Latrobe Municipal Authority, who is the provider of sanitary sewage treatment and collection for the greater Latrobe area, has been for a long time under a requirement to prepare and update a 537 plan. And while they were doing that, the Unity Township Municipal Authority went ahead and took it upon their own selves to create a, if you will, a dueling 537 plan. Both were submitted to the DEP. The Unity Township supervisors and the UTMA supported that 537. Dairy Township, DTMA, City of Latrobe, LMA supported the other 537. And the DEP reacted with basically walking us through a constructive effort to mediate and figure out which plan best met the needs of the entire area. And in that process, the DEP felt that the LMA 537 plan was the best plan for the area and recommended that all entities agree to carry out the 537 plan as developed by the Latrobe Municipal Authority. And that was presented to the communities on back in February, and I believe you were in attendance, Madeline, as well as Jim, and we've been following it. Now, what we're being asked to do isn't entirely clear, but it's been described to me as they would like each entity, governing body, to agree to the framework as presented. If the communities can't agree to the framework, then I imagine the DEP will remove their language and come down with a harsher, you must, you have to, and assess penalties potentially to the varying agencies. Potentially the UTMA and LMA may have consequences for not, agreeing to this outline, if you will. So they presented to us a consent order and agreement for how to move forward. And what we would be, that is the DEP. And what we would be doing is agreeing to the framework as outlined. If everyone agrees, then they issue the consent order and agreement, and then the various parties would sign on to that agreement at that time. Jim, do you have a comment?
Other than at the meeting at the airport, there were probably 30 people there representing DEP, DTMA, UTMA, LMA, and the various municipalities. The agreement is there. There is some minor tweaking of language and things going on now between DEP and the engineers. They had asked for comments on the proposed consent order, and so they're fleshing that out, but it all appears to be moving well. At this point, I think I'm going to talk with Mr. Hirschlag, but it would appear that they want us to all preliminarily say, yes, this plan is okay, we're okay with it ourselves. My position has always been, it's a highly technical area, and I would certainly rely on LMA and the LMA engineers. And if they feel this is the direction that should be taken in pursuance of their plan, then that's the direction I would recommend the council.
Haven't they done that already at their meeting? I think they've had a meeting and they've approved this framework. LMA has.
That is correct.
Okay. I knew the DTMA had. I wasn't.
Yeah, and I believe UTMA has approved it also. Right?
Oh, UTMA did. Yeah.
With
UTMA approved the framework. LMA approved the framework. Now it's the governing bodies. Mm-hmm. Dairy Township.
UTMA offered amendments, but they didn't approve.
In both plans, don't they have hole tanks in them?
The second plan offered by the UTMA requires the removal of up to 4,000 customers out of the 9-mile watershed and pumping that over to the 14-mile treatment plant via, again, pump stations, because it can't be done via gravity. And so it does not include, other than what you may need for pump stations, the kind of holding tanks envisioned by the LMA plan. Now, the holding tank principle is real simple. The way our collection systems work is they're designed to convey the sanitary sewage to the treatment plant. The treatment plant's designed for a daily capacity. However, on rain events, there's infiltration, particularly within the older portions of the sewer system, so that if the treatment facility is able to handle 6 million gallons a day, on a rain event day, it may get 12 million gallons in that particular day. Currently, there's 18 permitted outfalls that the DEP allows the LMA system to open up, the floodgates, if you will, and through a process of a little bit of gravity to allow for falling out for solids, raw sewage to be deposited into the Little Hannah. That will no longer be allowed. And this is something that's happening in Boston to Kansas City, Chicago to Pittsburgh. It's all the same. You know, it's a Clean Water Act and the feds that are requiring this. So we need to eliminate these outfalls. So what they're proposing is simply on heavy rain event days with multiple million-gallon underground storage tanks, capture those waters, and then the next day when it's dry, send it to the sewage treatment plant, and being able to treat it properly.
Send it there a little at a time to let them treat it.
Exactly, and it's a proven method. It's a very feasible method. I think actually the city of Chicago was the first to do it in a large scale, but I think for 7 years now, Greensburg has had a same system. Again, where they have these buried tanks and they pump on dry days to the sewage plant. That they put it back in the pipe and let it go in and they get treated.
And I think you'd ask, LMA's plan is a two-stage plan. It's one tank, and if that works, everybody's happy. And if it doesn't, then there's
Phase 2.
Phase 2, which is a second tank. I think one of the things that came into play in DEP's, let's say, approval of LMA's plan was cost. It was just more cost effective.
Sure.
So at this point, we may do a preliminary approval, and it would be a resolution for the meeting. And then down the road, once the consent order has been tweaked and all the suggestions made, then we'll be asked to approve that finally. But so it'll more likely be a resolution on temporary approval.
Okay.
The second item on the memo for the April 14th meeting are combined with the next two, and that would be the agreements with the school district for the safety resource officer, and then the approvals to hire or to advertise to hire a new city police officer. As you know, we've been discussing with the school district the opportunity that they have received via a grant to hire a school resource officer. They would be hired by the city, but for 180 days of the year would be servicing the 5 school buildings of the Greater Latrobe School District. We'll need to acquire a vehicle, which we're already kind of in the process of trying to find some grant money to get the vehicle. But nonetheless, the city solicitor, Mr. Kelly, and the school district solicitor, Ned Nichols, and Jim Bumar, and staff from the school district have been talking about the job descriptions, what this position will look like. On Thursday, we'll have a meeting to, I think, hopefully hammer out a lot of the details. A couple of things will need to happen. One will be an amendment to the CBA, the collective bargaining agreement with the Fraternal Order of Police, the FOP, the police's union. We'll have to have something that accommodates this officer because they'll have different hours, they'll have different things, and the union has been involved in the discussions and is okay with that. In fact, I believe they've already prepared some language that they see would accommodate this officer and are going to propose that to the city. So we'll have to do an agreement with them. We'll have to involve the civil service in the hiring and the testing of the officer. Am I missing anything, Jimmy? We'll have an agreement with the district. So we'll be looking to do those all together, in April, so that we can hopefully get the person hired in July, start in July.
Why does it have to be a city employee? Why not a school district employee who's going to pay that the whole Greater Latrobe School District is going to foot the bill instead of retirement that we're going to be having to pay years down the road and that there? I mean, the $60,000 the first year, we're getting $30,000 the second year, and the third year the school district is supposed to pay it all.
They would, yeah, each year they would be committing to 60,000 over 3 years, correct?
Each year the school district pay it all.
Okay, is $60,000 going to cover the cost of everything though? When you're talking about, you know, the fringe benefits and everything else, the salary, fringe, plus maybe possible overtime?
The direct cost, yes. Indirect costs, to a lesser degree, no. However, beyond 180 days, this person will be working within the city's force. They will be helping us, for example, in summertime for vacation and being within the rotation. So it's not like they'll take summers off. So in essence, the city's getting all of our direct costs covered so that we have available to us as many days as a person would normally work, minus the 180, available to the city. So we'll get, I wouldn't say handfuls of days, but we'll get 40, 50 days out of them where they'll be supplementing our police force and working within the city.
When they hired the female officer, was she considered the information officer or something like that there? What they said that was her, that she was going to be going around to the different schools and doing things like that.
The community resource officer is a non, what would you say, badged, I don't know what the right word is.
Non-uniform.
Community service officer is a non-professional
Oh, okay.
position. She's not Act
A law enforcement.
She's not Act 120 certified. Okay.
Jim, maybe if I could answer, one of the ideas behind having a school resource officer, and that's the name, in the schools is it's twofold. And a good part of it's education. In other words, they want the students to see this is a police officer. This is someone from our police force. And he is, to a pretty significant degree, going to be interacting with students, educating them, talking about different things, drugs, you name it.
Then why not have the school district pay for it all and have them hire the person?
They can't hire police officers. They can hire school police. And school police can do police work, but it's not the same thing as having that badge on that Latrobe Police Department in that uniform. That means a lot to the kids to see it. I'm saying that's the concept behind a school resource officer.
Well,
they want the kids to have a better appreciation.
They work up there 8 hours and then somebody marks off and we have to call that person in at time and a half down here to cover a shift.
We're going to have to call somebody in, whether it's him or the next guy. I mean, almost rather call him in.
I think for our perspective, there's a synergy that's created by working together. We're able to get more working together than they could on their own, creating a whole new setup and system. Some school districts are large enough and have created their own police forces. But this school district really isn't at that level to do that. As you know, a lot of our issues are, don't stop at the borders. And school functions, school activities, this officer would be able to, from a reconnaissance standpoint, know a lot of what's going on. That may be helpful for us in our community. It would enable our drug dog and our officers to be able to do work directly with those schools when necessary, without, for example, having to go, through the drug task force. It just creates a situation, I think, both for the school district and for the city, which includes our combined taxpayers. Something that we can do on our own, we can do it better together. And that's
well, I'm just concerned that the city taxpayers, because we and you yourself has said we have to watch these costs down the road, and down the road, and down the road. 5 years down the road, when we still have that officer, because we don't lay anybody off. We let them retire and then don't hire anybody. But then down the road, this employee is going to have the seniority and everything else, and it's this person that. I don't know, they probably have to have a psychology degree if they're going to talk about drugs and things like that. I mean, that's a big job.
It's a big hire.
That's a big job. And I kind of thought that the school district would be better able to hire a person that's going to do that, because I don't think that our police officers, I don't think they have that many problems up there that a police officer is going to stop a fight or something like that. I mean, I think the costs are really going to be
let me say this, Jim.
down the road.
The way the agreement will be set up, it goes for a certain number of years. And either side can say, no, it's not equitable, and we can no longer be part of this, whether it's the district or the city. And we can always say, that's it, we're done. So if it becomes inequitable to either side, then the agreement is done, it's over with, and the position is eliminated, and it's simple as that.
Well, then you've got to worry about, if you're talking about a contract and negotiating with the employees of the police force and that.
These are discussions we're having, Jim.
There's very, the technical issues there that we really got to be concerned about.
This new officer, he won't be making what a 15-year veteran will be making, right, Jim? He's at the base pay, he'll be the lowest. I think it takes him 3 years, 4 years to get up to the regular guys, something like
What
that.
are the costs of a beginning officer with all the fringe benefits, hospitalization, and everything? What does it cost a year to hire a policeman if they just hire?
We've reviewed those costs.
What are they?
At this position, I don't have them right here in front of me. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but this.
I'll bet it's more than $60,000 when you're talking about.
I've gone through that with you, and I've showed you those numbers.
Yeah.
It's less.
It's pretty close to that number.
But remember one thing, they're paying that number for, I'll say, 3/4 of the year.
Right.
Yeah, Jim,
The other fourth of the year, we get to use that police officer here in the city.
And we're paying for it.
No.
And they're still paying for it, and he's.
I think Alex just said, am I correct, $60,000 covers it.
That would
Okay,
cover our direct costs, yes.
Yeah.
okay, our direct
Does
cost.
his retirement go into that too? What he earns up there, does it go directly into his retirement paying that there? Certainly it does.
The direct costs, again, are covered. There are obviously indirect costs, the lighting of this building, the heating of the building, the fueling of cars, there's some indirect costs. And again, we've done a number of exercises to account for all of our costs, and we think this is amenable to the city, again, in the fact that the person will be available for an entire year, about 3/4 of the year will be available primarily for doing.
I really and truly believe that something this big should be discussed in public session.
Well, that's what we've been doing.
You don't even have to plan, no, you're gonna have a meeting to finalize deals that we don't even have finalized yet.
We've been talking about this for a good while, both at the school board level and here. Mr. Premko was at our last two of our last meetings. Trust me, that we have the details. We know that the direct costs are covered, by the grant, and we believe this is in the best interest of the city. These elected officials get hired to make those kinds of decisions. And your comments are very welcome.
A year or 2 years ago,
realize that
we talked about taking care of St. Vincent's College too, the same way. And we talked about having a patrol up there and that there. And when they have athletic events, we're going to have our people there. I mean, I think it needs to be hashed out, really.
trust me, it will. And that's what these folks are doing.
Well, I hope so. Because we as citizens have to rely on you folks, and I hope that you keep the citizen, the people that are going to be paying for this, in mind, because an awful lot of older people, senior citizens in Latrobe, that are living strictly on Social Security, and they don't have their medical benefits and things like that we have to worry about. So I just hope that you keep this all in mind when you make your decisions on that. Thank you.
We did, sure.
I really hate to be negative, but boy, it really concerns me.
There's a big benefit for in the summertime when the school isn't in session and they're helping out with vacation schedule and overtime, because they'll be filling in, right?
At a lower rate.
Yes.
So that will be helpful. That will offset some of
And
the costs.
those are all costs that we're looking at throughout, everything that's analyzed.
Because that will help with the police budget.
The way the agreement, which has not been agreed to yet, reads, it's whenever school is not in session. That means kids are not in class. On those days, that individual works here, or out of here, I'll say. So that could be over the Christmas break.
Yeah.
That could be Friday after Thanksgiving, any of those different times. So that's.
So that would help with costs there, right, Jim?
We also have to take into consideration that in this 3-year span, There will obviously be retirements.
And this is one way that we can have an officer trained
Already
in our, ready to
And
go,
this-
and then if this particular position remains with the school district, would fill it again with another low-paying officer.
Right, and if 2 or 3 people go, we'll already have this, we won't have to have the cost of the testing again. You know,
Exactly.
they'll just.
And you look at all those benefits together, which is what we've done when we analyze this position with your help, to see everything that, so that we're all we're making sure that we looked at all the costs
Yes, that's correct.
when we did analyze. Now,
The next item would be approve a multi-year, actually a 10-year franchise agreement with Comcast Cable. I believe I've provided to the council a number of documents. One is a sample of what the ordinance would look like, and I know Jim has looked at that, as well as a memorandum from the Cohen Law Group that states the benefits of the new 10-year agreement and what kind of performance conditions are in there, technical requirements and all that good stuff. And I know a number of you have looked at that and have had questions. Jim, do we have to have a public hearing?
Yeah, I have a notice prepared, it's just sitting in the file right now. It'll go down next Monday to the Bulletin for advertisement on April 2nd. There'll be a public hearing at the beginning of the meeting for any comment by the citizenry. And then at that meeting, there'll be an ordinance which will be advertised for passage.
And meanwhile, I can post the 4 documents or so to our internet and then make those available for public review as well. And again, including the memo, which I'll have to watch with the attorney-client privilege document. I'll have to watch some of what I have on there. But for the most part, the memo shortly or quickly explains what's in the 35-page, agreement that we have with Comcast, at least preliminarily. And it's a fair agreement. It's the best we can do considering the federal law and statutes. And of course, I think you all realize every dime that Comcast gives us is paid by the customers, right? All taxes are paid by customers, but they're clearly spelled out on their bill, their enumerated, right? If you look at your bill, you'll see something related to the local franchise fee. But I'm pretty pleased with the way this agreement reads, and I think it's a good deal for us. It covers all bases.
There's no way we can get that Verizon, since the school district turned that baby down, there's no way we can get something on one of our phones or something like that. That was about a $1,500 a month payment thing that they were talking about, I guess.
While this
School district.
Doesn't deal with cellular coverage, it does have a competitive equity provisions in it. In many parts of the state, Verizon has installed fiber optics and have begun to compete with Comcast in many markets.
Yeah.
They have price wars going on related to both bundling of the phone, cable, and internet packages. It's amazing what the fiber optic can do. It's very competitive. If that happens, we believe we've negotiated terms in here that are amenable to the city if Verizon ever does decide to invest in Westmoreland County and become a player as it relates to providing cable. Right now, they just don't have the infrastructure to seriously compete with Comcast in the range of channels and.
Oh, I didn't mean for that, but I thought Verizon was the tower. What was the tower that they were going to put?
I think they were seeking to put a cellular tower on top of the
That's
school
right.
building.
I know what Jim's saying.
Well, I don't know that
Is
it's.
there any chance we get out and
Well, sure, why not?
move it here?
Well,
I think we'd have to look at safety issues and things of that nature, but so would the school district. So.
Yeah.
but the question is I'm not sure that it's needed. Like, if you've ever been out there, there's very little cell phone service. In any of the schools, I used to live out by the country club, there's very little, we still today can't
Well, I
live.
thought the transfer station is
Yeah.
suited, and I've also investigated this tower. If you ever noticed the little radio tower in the St. Mary Cemetery, that's owned by the city. We've stopped using it for well over 10 years. It used to be part of our police and fire radio communication system. We actually have something at the top of the Trinity Rafferty building as well that we had used when we had a radio system. So all 3 of those are things that I've been kicking around with them. And obviously because of the airport, if you already have an existing radio tower like you do at the cemetery, it may be, an opportunity. You may be aware that the Masonic building had the same kind of facility put on it about 1.5 years ago, maybe 2 years ago, so that took away our Trinity Rafferty. But the transfer station is intriguing because A, it has the elevation, and B, proximity to the Route 30 area where you might be able to get coverage that way.
Alex.
But it's something to look into.
If that means $1,500 a month, or a
Alex,
month,
I
that's
believe
good
that
bucks.
Verizon sought out a elevation criteria, and that's met the elevation criteria. I don't believe the city meets the elevation.
The unfortunate thing is
Yeah,
we're
I mean,
low.
What about
obviously,
the
it's not as
tower,
easy as-
where the water tower is that you were talking about? That might mean it though, you know?
It doesn't.
It doesn't?
It's just not where you can just say, let's put their tire there.
Yeah.
They seek the areas. And unfortunately, that was a area that was geographically sought, and it was the school, and it didn't work out, but that's the biggest criteria.
I thought the country club would grab it next.
But Jim, we are open to discussion if Verizon wants to talk. We are available to talk if they want to talk about that.
Well, I don't know if they're gonna come to you, but I mean, I thought maybe we wanted to go to them to find out what their needs are. If we're interested in making some money,
The last item on the agenda would be permission to move forward for a roll-off truck for sanitation, and looking either to finance it through a loan or through a lease.
This is a budgeted item.
Yeah, we had anticipated under the capital budget to do it. The total cost is about $165,000, and we had set aside within the capital budget about $25,000, $30,000 for an annual payment, for this year's first annual payment on it. In my manager's report, I noted that I think it's vehicle 28 is actually right now out of service. Just to give you an idea of what kind of vehicle that is, that's a 2000 Mack truck with about 315,000 miles on it. I'm not sure if we consider that our front line one for the roll-off service.
It is.
But it's a front line for the roll-off service, and it may be out it's possibly to the end of this month. That's currently out for cracked frame repairs. So just to give you an idea, it's just to the point where we've neglected investing in those vehicles long enough, and we just got to get another one in the fleet.
Is that the one we repaired last year for a cracked frame?
Pardon me?
Is that the one we repaired last year for a cracked frame?
Yes, the other side.
Like clockwork, right?
Yeah.
When one light bulb goes, the other one goes at the same time. So, and when we're speccing this, we're doing our best to think through issues related to frame and body and capacity, and trying to ask all the questions we know.
Anything else, Alex?
Not under the agenda, but I do, and I have prepared for you a manager's report. And there's lots of issues. I do have extra copies for members of the public who are interested, and can hand those out. Of course, it'll be made available online. I think the most important thing on a manager's report is found on page 2. Basically, the parking meter position is being advertised as a part-time position. I think we originally were going to do it at a full-time position, but given realities of the city and our future needs, now recognize this isn't only because of things like Obamacare. Obamacare will treat somebody with 30 hours as a full-time person, so it's not necessarily related to that. But what we're looking at doing, instead of hiring one full-time person, we're analyzing hiring potentially 2 part-timers. We'll start at 1, and then potentially look at pulling in the other one. This will alleviate overtime issues that we have at the transfer station, as well as some other clerical overtime issues we have. And we'll see how this goes. But just so you know, we're going to look at it being part-time, not full-time. Any questions on that? I think the personnel committee, we've discussed this, and I think you kind of made it clear to me that night you wanted it to go that way. Just kind of got
Well, I'll
lost.
look at both sides of it. We'll have to see when it fits in, and how it fits into the, Lisa will be an ASME person or not?
Yeah, I'll still very much remain that, it's still within their, their benefit packages and how part-timers are treated within the union.
Anything else?
Well, there's a number of other important items there. I can't stress enough, please read each one of them. If you have questions, give me a call. Lots of schedule information in there as well. Some things you may be interested in following up on.
Have they ever thought about outsourcing that parking?
Oh, I've thought about it a lot. Yeah. There are entities who do that. There's entities who do enforcement. We just have not, put a proposal before council. But, it's just.
Is there anything against would that be against the contract? They have to be contract.
By the bargaining unit.
Alex, could we put on the agenda the recognition of the Latrobe High School wrestling season?
What's that, Jim?
I would like if council would recognize the Greater Latrobe Wildcat Wrestling Team for their exceptional season, 2 state champions. They sent 5 wrestlers to the states, which is unheard of, and they had 2 state champions. If need be, I can get all the information.
Yeah, Mark and I have actually, I forgot to follow up with you. I have a meeting set up with Mark Mears, the athletic director, to go over how to do all that.
Okay.
Yeah, so you'll be involved in that. Yeah.
Zach Sebastian and Little Fletcher.
Yeah, they're 2 champions, and Luke Schaefer finished 8th, and Dawn Scalise finished 6th.
How are we on the cost of the salt and things like that in the road? I know they're out patching now, which is really good. Doing a good job out there.
Thank you.
Joe, you have an update for the Murphy's Bridge of progress?
Just that they have been working, no deadline has been changed. We're still looking at November. And I honestly believe that it hasn't, the best I can tell, it hasn't impacted the transfer station. It seems those that intend on coming there find a way to get there.
That's good.
Have we ever come up with an idea how to generate more revenue up there? I know we had talked, council had talked about that. I know Rosie had talked about trying to find ways in that to increase the revenue up there. Because we were down, I think, we were down the first couple of months because of weather or something like that there, I believe, weren't we?
I think we are in the process of developing a business plan for that, helping what that is SCORE from the St. Vincent College, and we are putting together a business plan to see how we can better utilize
increase
that facility as a income stream for us.
And of course, that will entail, like it does with any business, spending some money on marketing and cultivating new customers and clients, more people across the scales. One of the first steps we're going to be doing is looking at an independent website for the transfer station. Right now, if you tried to find rates for the transfer station, lots of luck going through the city's website, because it isn't a primary thing that we do. I mean, there's other things that the city's website's trying to accomplish besides transfer station rates. So we're looking at having its own domain. We're even thinking about maybe changing what we call it, because if you ask somebody on the street what's a transfer station, somebody might think it's an electrical box that helps get electricity in your building. Others might think it's a bus transfer station that you go to one bus to another. And others might think it has something to do with the moving business. Many people don't realize it has to do with sanitation, and it's a place where you take your household waste and other kinds of construction materials. So we kick around, what should we call it, and how should it be branded? And you ask anybody who's in business, you got to get the word out about what your service is and do a little bit of pounding the pavement, marketing that, and trying to cultivate new customers. There are plenty around here who are driving further to dispose of their waste that may be amenable to them to come to the transfer station and tip it there. We know we've got the capacity. I mean, we know that. we know we're entitled to, both under the permit, within given staff and equipment, we can handle more. It's just a matter of gotta get more coming to us.
And that's all part of that business plan, is the branding and everything is all part of that business plan.
Yeah.
Anything else?
I guess on April 7th, we're having a meeting, another meeting for Neighborhood Watch.
This is the community meeting.
Yeah.
This is the one that's open to the public.
Yeah, that would be April 7th.
Yes.
Bill?
Yes, sir, anyone who's interested in participating,
It's 6 or 7?
6:30.
6, split the difference. That's it.
And April 14th will be the next council meeting,
At 6:30 on Monday night.
and that's a wrap.